What's up, everybody? Trad West Podcast back talking about the work, the Lord's work that DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, is doing in just, 2 weeks, 3 weeks' time. It's been remarkable what they've already been able to uncover. And I'm not going to go through everything on this video. I'll talk about the main one that's being talked about. Because I'm going to be honest, with Trump being reelected, I had my doubts. I was hoping he would go scorched earth, and I thought he'd probably end up, doing some stuff. There'd be roadblocks, people working against him, and he might cut deals with politicians, much like most politicians end up doing. And I felt it would be overall good, but disappointing and kind of a letdown. But it has already far surpassed, in only a matter of 2 to 3 weeks, it has already surpassed my expectations for the entire presidency in regard to the government's wasteful spending, fraud, all of our taxpayer dollars. DOGE and Elon Musk are doing an awesome job. And get shout out to Big Balls. Big Balls. One of the 19-year-olds that are working on auditing these places. I'll play a little clip because the mainstream media was having a meltdown over this kid's username online was like Big Balls, and they were freaking out and not happy about it. But then USAID I'm going to talk about, which is the big thing that's being looked into, cut off, and where a lot of our taxpayers' money was apparently going. But let's take a quick look at the mainstream media talking about old Big Balls.
Tonight with Musk and Big Balls.
Big balls.
Big Balls who work for Elon Musk's so-called Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, and in one case of the Big Balls kid, a literal teenager.
Big balls online. Big balls here. That Katie's talking about.
A 19-year-old goes by the username Big Balls.
So that would be one way to refer to him.
Computer whizzes, the aforementioned Big Balls.
Because who among us doesn't feel better about big balls in charge of American air traffic control?
I know I do. So there you have, cue the AC/DC song. I should have freaking had that ready to play too. So yeah, that's the mainstream media. Typical fashion. They're so out of touch with people. They can't have a little fun. Now they suddenly think 19 years old is way too young, and there's no possible way a 19-year-old would be able to be doing a good job in auditing. He's probably really good with numbers, good with coding, good with, you name it, hacking, whatever you want to call it. It's above my skill level, so I don't know what they're all doing, but there are some brainiacs out there. And look no further than the Democrat Party, who is constantly saying we should lower the age to vote to 16, is suddenly having an issue with a 19-year-old being too young to be doing something. So, I forgot what he just got elected to, but a high up part in the DNC, that stupid David Hogg, one of his old tweets, he's famous for saying we should lower the voting age to 16. So they haven't learned their lesson, the Democrats. They're doubling down on all the ridiculous woke stuff. And, you thought the way Trump won, they would have learned their lesson. But enough of Big Balls, and let's talk about some of the stuff that Big Balls and the rest of the crew has probably helped uncover. So, USAID, and that is what it's called. Everyone's been calling it USAID. And that's the semantics, play on words, that all politicians, but the Democrats are great at it. The AID is literally an acronym. It doesn't mean aid. It doesn't stand for USAID. It stands for United States Agency for International Development. Agency for International Development. That's the aid part, AID. So I call on everyone to stop playing playing these games. You're playing the game with them. They made it an acronym that looked like aid, so they could just use their typical semantics, virtue signaling. If anybody had a problem with it or was going to go after it, it's look, they're cutting aid. They're cutting aid for people that need it. Humanitarian aid. Agency for International Development, which turns out is funding a lot of stuff that's bogus and that taxpayer dollars should not be funding, and really a bunch of CIA shit across the globe. Regime change, sowing unrest in other countries. There are numerous countries, people that say they hate USAID. They hate it because it just caused a bunch of issues, civil unrest, and a bunch of issues within their country once it got there. So I call on everyone who's talking about USAID to stop falling for the Democrats' tricks in calling it USAID. That's not what it stands for. It's USAID, which stands for Agency for International Development. They're hiding it behind this just like they do when they're putting a bill on the House floor to vote on it. Again, all politicians do it, but the Democrats are notorious for this. I'm going to make up a bill name, but this is what they do. I mean, you call it like they just did it with the Inflation Reduction Act, and it didn't reduce inflation. But they'll call the bill. This is the Prevent Cancer Bill. And then if you actually looked in and read the bill, it literally does nothing to prevent cancer. But it's a name, a flashy name. It virtue signals. It gets all the normies' attention. Oh, it's called the Prevent Cancer Bill. That means it must prevent cancer. And then any Republican or any other politician that votes no on it, they can immediately just say, look, they voted against the Prevent Cancer Bill. They want you to die of cancer. When in reality, the bill did nothing to prevent cancer. It's same type of thing, although I'll give it the benefit of the doubt and say that the USAID, it probably did do some good in some areas. And hey, maybe when it was first started, it was doing what it should be doing and was strictly like helping out humanitarian problems. And then over time, much like DOGE is trying to fix within our government, it's just become corrupted. I don't get how any normal person can have an issue with them auditing what our government spends our tax money on. That is like the biggest common sense thing that I've been asking for, and because we all hate paying taxes, and I would at least like to know where exactly my tax money is going. Seeing that it's being audited, it's transparent, and that's really what it's going to. And I always preferred a system where there's just a flat tax across the board, and you get to pick which programs you want your tax dollars to go to. And ergo, if it's a stupid program that nobody wants, guess what? We get rid of it. It doesn't need funded. We don't need forced into donating to things. If people had more of their own money in their pockets and you weren't just extracting all of it through taxes, we would be more charitable and be more inclined to be giving it to causes and helping the less fortunate. I know I would if I had more extra on my paycheck. And if I didn't have to put into Social Security, that big scam, wait till more comes out on that. I'll probably have videos going forward on that. The info is too new. A lot of it's just speculation, but there's apparently a bunch of questionable fraud, or at least avenues of potential mass fraud within the Social Security program. Wouldn't shock me at all. Program's a joke. I don't believe in it anyways. If we were able to keep all that money and invest it in the S&P 500, I would probably these days be in crypto or just a 401 more in your 401k. You would be way, way better off. And you'd probably get the money before. A lot of people die before they're even able to claim it. And that's what part of the Ponzi scheme is. The family unit. That's the purpose of, I preach on this channel, nuclear family, two-parent household. That's the point of family, to take care of. You raise children, you take care of them when young, you give them great life. You get old, your health deteriorates, you become dependent on your children and the rest of your family. They now take care of you in your elderly age. That's not government's job. Government's not my family. Government's not Big Daddy, okay? Government's not meant to take care of everybody. And that's what Social Security does. It basically takes away the family and inserts the government in that role. And that's terrible. The government's terrible and can't manage anything it's in charge of. So, USAID, I'm going to share another clip. Well, actually, let me read off. This is from the Foreign Affairs Committee, House.gov website, where I'll just go over some of the stuff that they found that tax dollars are being wasted abroad for. Because this one thing, like, if they were spending our tax money on programs here in the United States, but they're sending it off, I'd be mad if they were, well, they are doing these types of programs in the United States, but I'd be mad enough if they were doing all the stuff I'm about to read here with my tax money, let alone sending it off to other countries. Trying to unstabilize other countries, trying to do degenerate shit to ruin those countries, because a lot of those countries are actually pretty traditional when it comes to family unit and that type of stuff. So here's just some of the examples. I don't know if I'm going to read over all of them, but $15 million for condoms to the Taliban through USAID. $446,700 to promote the expansion of atheism in Nepal through the state government. So again, they want to take away the traditional nuclear family religion. They want to make a bunch of just secular degenerates, atheists. I won't even say secular. Secular can be degenerate, but I won't even say, but atheists are definitely degenerates. $1 million to boost French-speaking LGBTQ groups in West and Central Africa through the State Department. $14 million in cash vouchers for migrants at the southern border through the State Department. $20,600 for a drag show in Ecuador through the State Department. And before I go on, because again, leftists like to play this little play on words, verbiage. We're not the government's not literally funding these things. Maybe not the government in some cases literally handing the money to these groups or to these causes, but that's what all these NGOs are created. They have hundreds, if not thousands, of these NGOs spread throughout the United States and throughout all these countries that are just working in cahoots on behalf of the government and the CIA. Where was I here? 47,000. I'm gonna like sum up the numbers. 47,000 for transgender opera in Colombia through the State Department. $32,000 for LGBTQ centered comic book in Peru through the State Department. $55,000 for climate change presentation warning about the impact of climate change in Argentina to be led by female and LGBT journalists through the State Department. Over $3 million for being LGBTQ in the Caribbean through USAID. 7 million, no, not 7 million, 7,000 for people of color speaker series in Canada through the State Department. $80,000 for LGBTQ community center in Bratislava, Slovakia through the State Department, the motherland. 3.2 million to help Tunisian migrants readjust to life in Tunisia after deportation. 16,000 to foster united and equal queer feminist discourse in Albania society through the State Department. $10,000 to pressure Lithuanian corporations to promote DEI values through the State Department. This is all like they're doing all this and they're doing it here because they want their one world global government, the liberal economic order. That's been their goal this whole time. The good thing is, it looks like they're not that competent and they're fumbling it. Unless this is all just part of the plan. I doubt it, but we got to keep DOGE and President Trump safe, because I worry that some of these heinous groups could try to be doing some terrible things. 1.5 million to promote job opportunities for LGBTQ individuals in Serbia through USAID. 70,000 to create U.S.-Irish musical to promote DEI in Ireland. So it's all DEI, transgender, LGBTQ bullshit. 2.5 million to build electric vehicle charging stations in Vietnam's largest cities through USAID. 425,000 to help Indonesian coffee companies become more climate and gender friendly through USAID. That is some of the bogus shit that our government is spending our tax money on. And aren't you just proud to be supporting that? I didn't vote on that. So remember that. And again, that's from foreignaffairs.house.gov. Little breakdown there. And then I'm going to play this other clip off of X. Was at the House Oversight Committee. Nancy Mace was talking about what they were spending more money on, taxpayer money on, transgender procedures for mice. So let's play that. I didn't watch this full clip yet, so I'm going to be watching in real time as well.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Late last year, the White Coat
Waste
Project exposed more than $10 million in taxpayer funds that were spent creating transgender mice, rats, and monkeys. These DEI grants funded painful and deadly transgender experiments that forced lab animals to undergo invasive surgeries and hormone therapies at universities across the country. For example, the Biden-Harris administration spent $2.5 million taxpayer dollars, $2.5 million taxpayer dollars to study the fertility of transgender mice. Let that sink in. We spent over $2 million studying the fertility of transgender mice. $1.1 million was spent to find out if female rats receiving testosterone therapies to mimic transgender men were more likely to overdose on a party drug commonly used in the LGBTQ community to induce drug fueled what's called chemsex. I asked my staff what was chemsex and the chemical, and I guess it's something called GHB, which is a date rape drug, and also a drug that's used recreationally. So we spent over $1 million.
Yep. Obviously never done that. Big in the gay community, GHB.
To find out if female rats receiving testosterone therapy were more likely to overdose on a date rape drug. That's what your taxpayer dollars were being spent on. Federal funds were also used to forcibly transition male monkeys to see if hormone therapy made them more susceptible to HIV. Now, I didn't know this until recently, but monkeys cannot be infected with HIV. Yet this federally funded experiment forced them to take hormone-altering drugs to study a virus it cannot have.
I didn't know that either.
The Biden-Harris administration was so eager to propagate their radical gender ideology across all facets of American society that they were surgically mutating animal genitals. Like taxpayer money went to that. So my question is, were they castrating mice, castrating monkeys? Were they getting double mastectomies? The language that they used in many of these experiments were, quote, gender affirming care, which I learned about 3 years ago what that meant. I thought that was maybe just some hormones or something very, something like that. But apparently gender affirming care is actually surgical mutilation of genitals. And apparently it's not just humans, they're doing it too. We were doing it with taxpayer dollars to animals. It's well known that because of the differences between animal and human biology, animal testing frequently does not produce results relevant for humans. In fact, 90% of drugs that are successful in animal tests fail in human clinical trials. Today's scientific questions are so complex that we have well surpassed the time where it is useful or appropriate to rely on inhumane animal experiments to answer them. Recently developed technological tools can more accurately model human biology and identify solutions that are more useful for human patients. But it is often the federal bureaucracy that prevents these new technologies from being used. Instead of adequately investing in these innovative alternatives, the federal government has continued to funnel taxpayer dollars towards cruel animal experiments. Today, most of the 27 NIH institutes and centers conduct or support animal testing. As says the Food and Drug Administration, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the Department of Veterans Affairs, the Department of Defense, and countless other agencies. We have some beagle puppies here with us today. Beagle puppies have gone through some of the worst medical experiments. Drugging them with cocaine, having insects eat at them and their bodies so much until they die, drugging them until they die. These are God's creatures, and they're beautiful. And you can see them sitting in the front row today. So we thank the folks who are here and brought these beautiful beagle puppies here today. In fact, the U.S. government spends in excess of $20 billion a year conducting experiments on animals. The White Coat Waste Project found in 2021 that the NIH, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, a component of NIH at the time, ran by Dr. Fauci, spent $1.68 million for speeding toxic drugs to beagle puppies between 6 and 8 months old before dissecting and killing them. The conversation
Yeah, so you get that. Any of those who were paying attention during COVID already saw that, the whole puppy scandal, and Fauci with the NIH doing tests that were just terrible, horrific on beagles. Normies denied it, of course, and so it was conspiracy. It was real. So, first and foremost, where's PETA? You know, they're up in arms all the time when you're eating meat and anything else. But the second anything like this is happening, they're silent, nowhere to be found. Well, first off, I get if they want to, you know, whether you agree with it or not, they do test on animals. So it does make sense, even though I think that's pretty heinous to be doing transgender mutilations to animals. I don't agree with that. They do test on animals to see if it is harmful to humans. But if they're doing it on animals to find out, why are we already doing it on children and humans? Seems like you should have done the animal tests first and got a prognosis, to see if it was harmful or not before you started testing on human subjects and children. Because they're mutilating little kids in this country already. So I'm against them doing it to these animals, and I'm against them doing it to the children. And you know what? I don't think adults should be doing it either, but if you're a consenting adult and you want to mutilate your body and do some weird shit, I'm also pretty libertarian in that sense. Like, I guess go for it. As long as you're like an actual decently rational person, and you're not somebody mentally ill. That brings me up to another clip that I want to pull up. I won't do that right now, but so yeah, that's some of the stuff that our taxpayer money is going to through USAID and various other government NGOs. Not government NGOs. Government NGO stands for non-government organization, but they get the funding. The NGOs get this funding from the government, and that way they can act like they're not involved. So, to finish up more of the USAID stuff that was happening, you ever wonder, like, because me, at least I wonder, if you're a normie or you're kind of left-leaning, you probably don't wonder, but I'm always wondering how CNN, how MSNBC, how these leftist media organizations stay afloat and are in profit when their key viewer demo is in the tank. It's garbage. Like, podcasts, YouTubers, and Fox News is actually way more popular, but still, that's a mainstream source. But CNN, MSNBC, their key demo groups, their ratings are garbage. And it's like, how? How do they stay afloat? Well, turns out a lot of these media organizations were getting government money, taxpayer dollars. That is how they're staying afloat. I didn't sign up for that either. So it all starts making sense when you put two and two together. Why during COVID were all of them just NPC lemmings in line, just say the next thing, say the next thing, say the next thing, all in lockstep? It's because they're receiving government money through taxpayer dollars, through our hard-earned taxpayer dollars. They're receiving these funds, so they're gonna do whatever the government urges them to do. Or maybe it's not like, hey, you better or we're gonna, but it's a, hey, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Maybe you shouldn't run this story. Maybe you shouldn't talk about this. Maybe you should push this. Maybe you should talk about this. So that's no big shocker, but it was interesting to see. And what else do we got? Oh, yeah. All the propaganda that was in Ukraine. Turns out like 90% of the media companies there were receiving U.S. taxpayer dollars. So, surprise, surprise, especially when the war started, all that propaganda, the ghost of Kyiv and Ukraine is going to win this war. Yeah, bullshit. They didn't have a chance. It's really disrespectful and horrific that the Ukrainian population is going to be like completely wiped out by the end of this. Hopefully, Trump can get a end resolved because people seem to have no problem just throwing the Ukrainian people into the meat grinder. Oh, but we're not sending our U.S. soldiers over there to die. Okay, fair point. That's good, but it's still not good or right to be sending all these Ukrainians into the meat grinder for what? A bunch of profit to DOD contracting companies, and maybe you're going to weaken Russia. That's pretty much all it is, or we're after resources that Ukraine has. Um, so that, and then, oh yeah, FEMA's being looked at finally. I can't wait to see more about this. But shocker, while after Trump took office, they were still. This was just this one time, like last week, this past week. You know, we had horrific things happen with hurricane victims. Hurricane Helene. We just had all these crazy wildfires in California. There are Americans out there that are hurting. And even if those natural disasters didn't happen, there are plenty of homeless people in America that could really use aid. And guess what FEMA sent $59 million for? Housing illegal immigrants in luxury hotels. Yes. So Elon just posted something on X about that. And maybe trying to work on getting those funds sent back. But what a slap in the face. Like, even again, like I said, what the hurricane victims get? $750 from the government or some shit, and you had to apply for it. And I thought I might have saw something that it was like not even like free $750. Hey, it's never free. We're all fronting the bill. But I think there was strings attached to that too. And even so, 700, bro, I just lost my entire livelihood or my house, car, everything, and you're giving me $700? That's a spit in the face, man. And then we're giving 59 million. There are millennials and Gen Z, all these people that think the American dream's dead. They can't afford rent, they can't buy a house. And they're struggling to get by. They got to go like 3 to 4 to 5 deep in an apartment to split and be able to pay rent. Meanwhile, illegals are being housed in luxury apartments. I mean, hotels. You can't make this stuff up. And I'm sorry. I'm friends with some of the like kindest people. Their heart's in the right place. But even those people, like, come on, man. You got to be angry about this stuff. They're spitting in our faces, and they're just giving this crap out to illegals and across the globe in our taxpayer money. Like, this is why people, like, I have a hard problem. Conservatives always, like, knock people for not wanting to work. Oh, they're lazy. I mean, I don't blame them when they see all this fraud and corruption going on. Why do I want to slave away all day spend time working for someone else just to give a bunch of my income to the government, and it's just being exploited and sent off fraudulently to other countries for these bogus programs. Like, it's at least if you're stealing my money from me, let it go to like good causes in America. Sending it across the globe to these bullshit causes, like, that should make everyone angry. And I'm going to be making more videos about some of this stuff because it's really crazy what DOGE is uncovering so quickly. I hope they hit the Federal Reserve, the Treasury. They're getting some pushback, but I'm really excited to see what they can get done in 4 years, and it's only been a couple of weeks. So until next time, we'll end it there. Trad West Podcast